Welcome to Brothers of the Word, because, brother, you need the Word. And today I am in the midst of a series that came about when my youngest son and we were praying, and I simply was thanking God for contentment. And God says, I want you to preach your next sermon using every letter of the word contentment. And George will give you the words to use with that letter. And right now we started with care. Then the O was opinion. The N was new. And today, for the letter T, George spoke time. And I remember when I was growing up, my pastor at the time, the late Reverend William Holmes Borders, he would often say it takes time to be holy. And I'm here to also tell you, for the vast majority of people, it takes time to be happy. And it takes time to be happy because oftentimes with most people, they don't get really happy until later in life. AV, I want you to put and leave this up on the screen. This is a chart of actually the happiness index, of where psychologists have done the studies. And as you can see, the happiness index is sort of like a smile. And you notice on the left side, on the axis on the left, that's the age, and on the, well, actually that's the happiness index on the left, and on the bottom axis, that's the age. Well, the highest one on the left is when people are about 12 or 13 years old. They're happiest right at that point, about 12 or 13 years old. It starts to go downhill from there. It goes downhill from 12 or 13 years old, and between 40 and 50, folk are the saddest. And after you get to 50 years old, the happiness index starts to go up. And it peaks out at 98. So for those of you who are 50 years plus, look at somebody who's also 50 years plus, says, getting better from here. And I'm here to tell you about time. It takes time to be happy. But if you are on the end closer to the 12 or 13, we've got a lot of youth here today, and you're in your late teens or your early 20s, and you're looking at this chart, and you're saying, well, preacher, does that condemn me that I got to be, if I'm 25, I'm going to get sadder and sadder and sadder for the next 25 years until I'm 50, and then it'll turn around? It doesn't have to be like that. What this is an aggregate of what the average person goes through. But you never have to be average. But what it does let you know, and you can take the chart down now, what it does let you know is that even with the average, it goes contrary to what's popularly believed, that as you get older, you get sadder. That's just absolutely not true. As you get older, your joy increases, and there are several reasons why your joy increases with time. And if you can grab some of these principles young, then you won't have to go through that bottom, and you won't have to hit that nadir. You won't have to deal with that bottom of the curve where you're the saddest around 45. You can avoid that if you understand why a person at 80 is just as happy as a person at 12 or 13. And how a person at 90 is happier than a person at 12 or 13. And it's sometimes hard for us to imagine, how can somebody be 90 and they're happier than someone who's 20? I wish my mother were here today. I called her this morning and said, Mama, can you come to church this morning? Mama was feeling good. And Mama said, I'll think about it. Well, I guess she thought about it because she's not here. But Mama is 88 years old, and every time I talk to Mother, she has the same statement. I am so happy. And she goes down this list of why she is happy. And mama lives by herself. My father is transcended. He's gone away from this plane of existence, and he passed away, how many years ago? It's been about 20, almost 30 years ago. It's been a long time. So he's been gone. So mama has not gotten another man. And and I imagine mama could have gotten her another man, because mama still looks about 60. She's 88, but mama still, and see, 60-year-old women, some of y'all like that 60. Y'all got a man. So yeah. Mama can still get a man if she wanted one, but mama has been just as happy. And every time I talk to mother, she goes right down the list. Mama will talk about, oh, your father was such a good man. I was so blessed with a good man. So even though my mother doesn't have my daddy now, my mama still appreciates the mess out of my daddy. Then she talks about all of her children. And then she talks about this and this and this and how blessed she is. And mama just reflects on all of the things. And then she said, I'm feeling good. And mama is still looking good. And mama has everything in order. So mama right now is just as happy as she can be. I've known my mother all my life. And mama is happier now at 88 years of age than she has ever been. So I want to talk to you just a minute on how can you get that happy without waiting until you're 98. And if we can have some of that new mindset that I talked about in the last message, we don't have to wait until we're 98 to get happy. You can be happy at 28 or at 18 or at 38. When other people have reached the pits of their life, you can be at the peak of your life. If you do this thing the right way, and if you have the right thought pattern in mind. And see, some of the things that help older people as you get older, you just don't care about some of the things you cared about when you were young. With my two oldest sons, they're really heavy into cars. And they know the acceleration rate of every fast car on the market. I don't give a hoot about speed of a car. There's nothing wrong with that, because when I was their age, I was into motorcycles. And I knew the acceleration rate of every motorcycle. It was important to me then. Right now, how fast a car goes, as long as it'll get me to 80, 85 miles an hour, that is as fast as I need to go. And as a matter of fact, I bought my wife a Tesla. And the Teslas have an extremely fast acceleration rate. They're really, really fast. And the Tesla has a setting on it that can set it from standard to chill. And what happens when you set it to chill, it won't accelerate as fast. I had to set the car to chill, because every time I would ride with my wife, she would step on the gas and snap my neck back. I said, sweetie, she didn't jump. So I just went in and changed it and slowed it down. So see, as you get older, some of the things that were so important to you when you were young, it no longer matters. And what happens when you get older, people start to value the true valuable things in life. And the things that really don't make that much. See, we were talking even recently with my sons, and they were talking about, well, this car here will do about 200 miles an hour. And you have to have special VR-rated tires to be able to hold up. What do I need to go 200 miles an hour for? And where am I going even at 100 miles an hour? Old folk understand. Well, let me say, mature folk understand that. Where do I need to go where I've got to go anywhere beyond 100 miles an hour? When I was younger, I had 2 Corvettes, and the Corvettes, they required VR-rated tires, because my Corvette would go about 155 miles an hour. So you had to have tires rated at 155 miles an hour, and the Corvette tires were super expensive. The kids were talking about a Bugatti, and they said the Bugatti tires, because the Bugatti will go 200 and something miles an hour, the tires are $12,000 per tire. So when you burn up your tires, it's $50,000 to get a new set of tires. Now, the car costs about a couple of $1 million, so if you can afford a $2 million car, you can afford a $50,000 set of tires. But I'm thinking to myself, number one, I have absolutely no desire or no need for a $2 million car, and I sure ain't gonna buy no $50,000 tires, because I'm not gonna be going 200 miles an hour. So your priorities change, the things that you value change. So if you want to get truly happy at a younger age, you need to start looking at what do mature people value and what do they not value and why. And when you start looking at the true reasons, you'll find they make a whole lot of sense. You don't need a car that really goes over 90 miles an hour, because there's nowhere you really can go beyond 90 miles an hour. Prophet Dexter is a trooper. Prophet Dexter in Georgia, what's the fastest you can go on any highway without getting a ticket that you wouldn't pull them over and lock them up? What's the fastest you can go? Well, that's the speed limit. I mean, you got a little leeway in it. I mean, before you put your lights on, what's the fastest you can go before you're going to get pulled over?
It depends. I give people about 19 miles.
About 19 miles. So that puts you at 89. If you hit 90, Prophet Dexter going to have you in handcuffs. That's what that boils down to. So basically, 90 is about as fast as you can go without worrying about handcuffs. So for Prophet Dexter, he has a lot of grace. Some of the other troopers may pull you over before then, but 90 practically is about as fast as you're going to go before you're going to have to deal with some handcuffs. So older people have this mature mindset, and they understand some of all of this stuff that's got young folk striving and struggling and trying to get is really not that important, and it's not even practical that you can utilize it anyway. So when we learn some things of why are people in their 80s happier than people in their 20s, and when you understand it, now these are the three things they talk about with mature people that has them at the happiest point in their lives. First of all is they don't work a job that they don't like. If you're 80 and you're working, you like what you're doing. They don't work a job. And it didn't say they don't work, because most of the people who are actually older and happy, they're doing something. They're not just sitting down watching television all day. They're doing something. They're volunteering. And a lot of people still work. I don't ever plan on retiring. I'm going to change my work schedule, but I never plan on retiring. At 116, I'm going to work. I'm never planning on retiring, but I am going to modify work schedule, and I am going to do stuff that I like to do. So this is why career makes such a big difference. When you can be joyous about going to work every day, it changes your whole outlook. But if you got to go and work and you go to a job that you just can't stand, you just hate, and they're paying you a lot of money, but you just hate it, that's why happiness a lot of times of a lot of people in the middle age range is so low, because they're slaving at these jobs that they really don't like. And that's why having work that fills your soul and that even if it pays you less money, having work that you enjoy doing makes a huge difference. So number one, they don't work at jobs they don't like. And number two, they don't deal with folk they don't like. They don't deal with folk they don't like. So as you get older and older, I'm 65, and as I get older, if some folks I just don't deal with them. I don't waste my time. I don't spend. And see, sometimes younger, for whatever reason, you got to deal with teachers, and sometimes some teachers just have a beautiful personality for all of the students. They really, and some teachers are just, you know what I mean? They're just, whoo, boy, you just don't want to be. Then you got sometimes study groups that you have to be in, and some of the students you can't get along with, and all this. So you just got some people that are just irky, and you just don't really want to be around. As you get older, you get more selective. And then you start cutting loose folk who need to be cut loose. There's even, unfortunately, there's even a thing now, they're calling it gray divorce. There's this huge surge in mature folk getting divorced. Folk folk just don't stand for much stuff these days. And they're just divorcing now, and as soon as the kids get out of the house, they just divorcing. So I've been with you all these years, the kids gone, now I ain't been able to stand you for the last 20 years. And they just, so the great divorce rate now is through the roof. But one of the reasons why older people are happier now is they're not around folk and they don't tolerate folk they don't want to be around. So I'm telling you, even young people now, choosing who you associate with is a great, great benefit when you choose the right people. When you choose people who are energy givers instead of vampires, it makes a world of difference in just your joy. Mature people understand that better. And they choose their associates and their associations much more carefully as they get older. And they cut all these folk loose, just draining their energy, just making them sad, that's got all this negative force. They just cut them folk loose, or they die. And sometimes that happens, because the more negative you are, the shorter your lifespan is going to be. And so they become freer and they become happier as they get older and older and older. And all the psychological studies say that as time advances, it's not the conditions that get better as we age, is that we have a chance to let go of expectations and be more realistic about life's ups and downs. By the time you hit 70, you ain't looking, I'm just saying, you're not thinking you're just going to turn the world upside down. You real. You're real about what is, and you're real about it is what it is. And then you have become seasoned to some of the changes in life. As you get older, some habits just don't upset you that much. I've been there, done that. I've seen that before. So it doesn't really upset. See, you have to be, the older you become, the more resilient you become, because you've gone through some stuff and you're not as sensitive about stuff. And you've just seen a lot of stuff. You've gone through tragedy. You've gone through ups and downs. So stuff doesn't shake you as much. You have become stronger in the Lord because you've been with the Lord longer. So young people, I tell you, even now, if you can get to the point where you don't let stuff, if you just use this one simple principle, how much will this matter in 5 years? Most of the things that we get upset about, it won't even matter in 5 days or 5 hours. But we let stuff upset us so much, and all of that stuff messes with our joy, and it messes with our happiness. And we got to learn how to act like the mature people do and understand some things like the mature people, and it makes a difference. When you get older, you no longer have to figure out who you are, what you want to become, what you want to accomplish. You're not worried about status. You're not trying to climb the ladder. You're not trying to prove who you are to somebody else. When you hit 70 years old, none of that bothers you. If you can't accept me like I am now, that's just too bad. As you get more mature, a lot of the things on the rat race and the treadmills of life, they no longer matter to you. And as a result, you become freer of all of this stuff and all of these expectations, and you trying to prove this and to prove that. You need to know without question your divine destiny. And some of your divine destinies are at the mountaintop. You need to understand your mountaintop, but you don't need to try to get to that destiny trying to impress somebody else. You don't need to try to get to that destiny because of competition. You need to be able to get to that destiny because this is where God has ordained me to be. And when you learn to go into that divine flow, you're just happier and you're just more content. And this is why that curve starts to go up and up and up. Even though the bodies are going down, the joy is going up. And there's no way an 80-year-old man can do what a 20-year-old man can do, but the 80-year-old man is much happier. So how do you get to this mind state without waiting until you're 80? Older people find deeper gratifications in simple things. When you get to a certain age, do you know it's just a joy to be able to stoop down and pick up something? I mean, it may sound a little silly, but by the time you get, because I know people my age need hip replacements, knee replacements, all kind of stuff. I ain't got any of my stuff need replacing. When you can go down and just bend down and pick up something without going, and my grandmother used to do this a lot when she was in her 90s. When she'd have to bend down to get up, she would say, ow. Y'all ever heard them talking about, when they get up, they say, ow. When you can just even appreciate simple things. Because, see, we don't appreciate things until we lose them. And then we go to appreciating what we once had. Imagine if you could appreciate, young people just take it for granted there's nothing hurting, that they can move freely. They just take it for granted. But when you get older, you just appreciate feeling good. You really do. When you wake up in the morning, you say, thank God. When you're 88, you wake up in the morning, you are appreciative to wake up in the morning. So you appreciate just the simple things of life. And I tell you, I had 2 Corvettes. I remember once on my red Corvette, the Corvette had a door handle that you had to press down and open the door. Well, somehow the linkage inside of my door handle broke. And this was on the passenger side. And, actually it's on the driver's side. So the door linkage broke. And I was real budget conscious at that time. The vet was just real expensive to get repaired. And I knew somebody to go and take that door apart and fix that just going to cost a whole lot of money. So for months, I drove that vet, and I would have to open the passenger door, reach across, and unlock and open the driver's door, close the passenger door, go back around and get in. Now, I did this for months before I got the door fixed. But once I got the door fixed, every time I pressed that handle, open that door, I said, oh my goodness. Woo, this is nice. This is nice. Now, nothing changed about the door handle before it broke. Before it broke, I pressed it, opened it. I never even thought about it. I never appreciated that door or that door handle before. But once it broke, every time I opened that door, thank you. Woo, thank you. Same door handle, but a whole different view. Mature people appreciate simple things. Younger people sometimes got to have all this big old stuff. They got to have all, and then it's fleeting. They don't appreciate just be able to take a deep breath with no congestion, with no pain. Just be able to see. Now, maybe it's not 20/20, but you can see. My vision is not 20/20, but I can read the clock without my glasses. So it's just, I appreciate simple things. Food now tastes better to me than ever. It just does. First of all, food tastes better because I can eat anything and it doesn't upset my stomach. Now, I don't eat anything, but I can. So it makes a difference. We just came off of a trip and we were talking about the food and how good it was. Well, everybody couldn't enjoy that good food because we had some folk got sick. And they had to miss eating the meals for 2 or 3 days because they got sick and their stomach was all upset. I was eating up a storm. And I mean, I enjoyed that food, and I appreciate that food. Some of you right now, you just eat your meal, your stomach digested fine, and you don't even think anything of it. And then some of the young folks, they just be eating all this bad food. And their bodies still handle it, and they have no effects from it. But because they are young and they take it for granted, they don't truly appreciate that. I appreciate it when I can have a full meal, and not only does it go down easy, it come out easy. Now, you may not say, I appreciate that. Every time, this may sound a little gross, but every time I go to the bathroom, and I'm out of the bathroom in 30 seconds with a number 2, every time I go to the bathroom, I say, Lord, thank you. Thank you for this blank. Now, I'm telling you, That's the way I feel about it, because see, some folk clogged up. They be in there for an hour trying to get stuff out, and I can go in there, so it's just a blessing. It's simple stuff. But mature people appreciate simple stuff. And when you can learn how to just appreciate the simple things in life, and every single day you treasure, because as you get more advanced in age, you understand there are less days in front of you than behind you in this body. So every day you don't take it for granted, you appreciate it. So if the younger people can have a mindset of the older people, and they begin to see and appreciate, and they're thankful for every little thing, and we don't have to wait until it breaks or till we lose it before we begin to treasure it. If we can just, and there's so many little things. We're sitting right here in this church, and the air conditioner is on because it's warm outside. And do you know when you go to a lot of little country churches and they got those funeral fans, and you just got the fan all day long? Now you need to be, if all you got is a fan, you need to be thankful for the fan, and you need to be thankful to the fact that your arm can move and you can fan. Amen. But we have air conditioning, and nobody has thought to be thankful that I'm sitting in a cool air conditioner. There are so many blessings that we have. And see, the younger people have a tendency to focus on the negative and all of the things that are wrong, whereas the mature people have seen all that stuff, and they have a tendency to focus on the positive things and all the things that are right. They focus on the smile of a baby, and it just thrills an older person to death, young person. So it just makes a difference. So when your eyes change, and we need to get some 80 and 90-year-old eyes spiritually and psychologically, not 20-year-old eyes, 80 and 90-year-old eyes. And as we've been in it, to be able to see through the vision of the elders, that happiness curve goes up and up and up and up. And actually, as I was running this morning, and I heard God speak about the message today, and I knew the message was on time, and that's the part I just talked about was what I had prepared. But I heard God speak, it's time. The time for what? It's time. He said, it's time for my people to let go of guilt and shame. It's time. One of the things that older people often have managed is they have managed a release of guilt and shame. And so many of us have not taken advantage of what Jesus died for, which is to cleanse and wipe away your sins. And there's a difference between guilt and shame. Guilt refers to when we feel bad and we feel guilty about an act or something that we've done. Shame is when we feel bad about ourselves. Guilt is the act. Shame is us. And the world has so much stuff that makes us feel guilty and shame because we've done some stuff, all of us. All of us have done some stuff, to be honest about it, is shameful. We thought some things, we've done some stuff, whether it be lying, whether it be stealing, whether it be cheating. All of us have done some stuff, whether it be excessive pride. All of us have done some stuff that we ought to be ashamed of, but that's why Jesus came. And when we can learn to let go, I read a statistic that 64% of Christian men watch pornography at least once a month. And he said, 64% of Christian men watch pornography at least once a month, but 15% of Christian women watch it. So we have all of this stuff that we have all this shame and guilt over. And this is, and the reason that folk watching it has a reason behind the reason. But all of this guilt and all of this shame comes on us. And God just told me this morning, it's time for my people to let that stuff go. That's what happened with the children of Israel, who were in slavery for 430 years. They were in slavery for so long. Their father was a slave. Their grandfather was a slave. Their great-great-grandfather was a slave. Their great-great-great-grandfather was a slave. So all they knew was slavery. And when they were freed, they still only could think like a slave. Some of us have been carrying shame and guilt that Jesus has removed from you for so long. It's time for you to let this go. It's time for you to understand that's what Christianity is all about. And all of us, and see, the older people, they've lived so long and they begin to understand some things. The molestation that happened to me 50 years ago, I don't let that stuff go now. I done forgiven them because they dead anyhow. They have a different mentality and they don't shoulder the burden of shame and guilt. When we left Montana on Friday, we had a connecting flight in Denver, and our flight was delayed. And when we got there, they said, I don't know whether you can make this flight. You're at a gate. Your gate is about 30 gates down, and the plane is about to take off. So when we got off, we had to run for the gate. And that was the hardest run I've run in I don't know how long. And it wasn't until later I realized, why am I breathing so hard? Like I'm just about to fall out here. I didn't realize that Denver is a mile high. The air was thin. So, we had to have one lady, they had to take her, almost had to call the medics because she just started running, and she just about 100 feet, and she was out. And I heard some people talking about that run nearly killed me. It wasn't the flight, the run nearly killed me. But I went to run this morning, and I was so strong running. I worked out with Ringo yesterday, just super strong. And then I realized it was the thin air in Montana and Denver that builds up your oxygen capability. So when you get back to a place that's got thick air, you perform much better. Some of us have been carrying shame and guilt for a long time, for years, for decades. And some of us carry shame and guilt for something we did as a teenager when we were 20, 30 years old, and we're no longer that person. And Jesus has wiped that away. And God just said this morning, it's time. It's time to let that go. And I want to pray with this morning, and I want to touch everybody who wants to let go of some shame and some guilt that you've been carrying. It makes a difference. You'll be able to run much freer, much faster, much harder, and much happier without it. May not be your fault that you have it. May have been something done to you. May be your fault. And it's something that we have to understand, that we are imperfect beings. And not only have we messed up, we will mess up. I remember hearing a preacher once say, once you saved, you don't sin anymore. I said, I don't know who you are, but I can't do that. Not only can I not do it, I don't even know anybody who can do that. So we are imperfect beings. But Christ came to take away our shame, to take away our guilt, to take away our sin. And God is saying, it's time. It's time to let it go. So I want to pray over you and touch you. And I'm a real believer. You can't impart something on somebody that you don't have. It comes from God, but it does make it. And one thing about it, yeah, I am pretty content. I'm pretty happy with stuff. And it's because of the way I view stuff. It's not because everything in my life is so smooth. Everything about this stuff I believe and I do. I am thankful for the simple things. I see the beauty in stuff. And life is just phenomenal. It just absolutely is. Even with the stuff that's wrong, or at least I think is wrong, and stuff I would like to have better. I heard, I think George in his message on, I'm not sure whether that was his message on Friday or one of his earlier messages. No, actually, I pressed surprise sermon. And it was one of your first messages called Nightmares and Stuff. And George, you could hear the difference in his voice. It was like a baby's voice back then. But it was so deep. And he said, if we had everything, we would soon be unhappy because there would be nothing to strive for. So I don't have everything. It's some stuff I got some serious lacks in. But I'm just as happy because I see the beauty in that, and there's a blessing in it. So even if I had to go around and open my car door from the passenger side, that was a blessing. Because at least the motor was working. Everything, it would crank up. I had gas in it. I just didn't have that handle working. There are always going to be some broken handles in your world. And you have to be able to see and be appreciative of the things that you have. And some of you now, you're carrying stuff from years and decades that was either done to you or that you did, and you have not forgiven yourself. Love thy neighbor as thyself. How can you forgive somebody else and you haven't forgiven you? And this is why the older and more mature people are happier. They're not hauling around shame and guilt. They're looking almost through a child's eye, and they see the simplicity and the beauty of life.